There comes a time in your life when your desire to change must outweigh your desire to remain the same. If this is your time, I want you to know that whatever your circumstances are, you're exactly where you need to be right now. You are stronger than you know. You deserve to live in your purpose and to have a happy and fulfilling life. You're worth keeping your promises to yourself. Every single thing you've done until this point has been enough. You are enough. You always were. My greatest desire is for you to give yourself permission to take a chance on you because you're worth it. Welcome to the True Growth podcast. I am Latina Mata, your mindset coach. And in this podcast, we explore and learn all things related to self-love, self-discovery, and inner work. It is the foundation to help you navigate life and make the necessary internal shifts to become the very best version of yourself. It is my greatest pleasure to be with you right here, right now. Throughout this podcast, we get to grow through what we go through together. Welcome to another episode of the True Growth podcast. And in today's podcast, we are going to talk about consistency. Do you have a consistency problem? Have you ever said, oh my goodness, I have a consistency problem. If I would just be consistent, my life would be so different. If I would just be consistent, I would achieve my goals. If I would just be consistent, I would have all the things that I want. Does that sound familiar? So the first question people say is, well, what is consistency? And usually when people think about consistency, they are usually modeling after somebody who they see that seems to be consistent. So somebody, if you're looking at social media, you've seen somebody going live all the time. You might see somebody posting all the time. And I'm using the word all the time very loosely. So when you look at them, it seems as though to be consistent means that you need to do lives 5 days for the week. To be consistent means you need to post on social media 7 days for the week. To be consistent means that you need to exercise every single day, 5 days for the week, for 2 hours every week. And that is what you would consider consistency to be. Here is a beautiful hack to share with you. Consistency is whatever you consider consistency to be. You see, it is easy to get caught up in what everybody else is doing. It is easy to look at everybody else's life and assume based on what you see that they have all of their shit together, and that is the definition of consistency. No. Your life is unique to you. Your way of being is unique to you. The things that you have to do is unique to you. No guru, no expert, not me, not anybody could tell you how to do what you have to do in terms of your way of being. What works for me will not work for you. What works for you may not work for me. And so it continues to go. There is no one-shot cookie cutter type of thing when it comes to creating a life that works for you. This is about creating a system that works for you. So when we speak to consistency is whatever we define consistency to be. So if you're going to use a number, consistency could be for you that you show up or do lives 4 times for the month. Once you have 4 lives done for the month, you could consider that as you being consistent, because over an entire year period, it would have meant every single month for 12 months, you have consistently showed up 4 times. Versus watching somebody else in the space, watching somebody else in the field who is showing up 5 days a week, every week for an entire year. That is consistency for them. And so the first place to start when it comes to consistency is you acknowledging what is going to work for your life. You cannot, and if you have, you should stop looking at other people's lives and what it is they are doing that seems to be the only way, or you believe that that is the way that you have to be in order to get the results that you want. That is not true. What that speaks to is you needing to be very aware of your energetic state. When it comes to consistency, managing your energy is mandatory. Some people have this Energizer bunny energy about them. They could just go and go and go and go and go. And other people need more rest. Other people need more downtime. Other people need to go with the flow of their energy. As a woman, if you are listening to this recording, this podcast, and you're a female, we have times of the month where our energy dips. It will be before our menstrual cycle. It'll be during our menstrual cycle. There are times of the month where our energy levels are just low. Being aware of these things and being mindful of the fact that we have these dips in energy puts things in perspective as it pertains to consistency. If you're a business owner and you're listening to this and you know that before this time of your month, for example, it's very hard for you to do specific tasks. Before that time of in your cycle, you might realize that people in might be very difficult to do. It might be hard to show up on stories during that time. It might be hard to do lives at that point in time. You get to create a system that works for you. You get to let the flow of your energy guide what it is you consider consistency to be. So if you know that you need to do lives as part of your strategy, as part of your plan, and you keep saying, oh my God, if I would just be consistent, life would be so different. Okay, how about you use the things that you already have, which is knowledge about your energetic state and where you are in your cycle, and plan around that. And create a personalized, customized plan that works for you, that would allow you to stick with it. So you're not actually going to be fighting against your flow of energy, but you're going to be working with your flow of energy. You're going to be working with your state of energy. So if you know that week before your period is due, or that week of your period is just a very low vibe time, and when I say low vibe, not as in negative, and you're being a party pooper, but you just find it difficult to exert energy to people, for example, then you get to schedule things and create things in a way that works for you. Of course, life happens, so not everything that you have control over, but the points and the times and the events and the activities that you could schedule that you have control over in terms of being consistent, you get to do that for yourself. So that's one as it pertains to that direct state of energetic management. That's one. The second thing as it pertains to that same energy, but this is from a different angle, is the energy behind the actual activity that you're doing. So it's not just what you do that matters, but it's the energy behind what you do that makes the difference. So if you are trying to learn to work out, or get in the routine, of working out, or get in the routine of showing up on your social media, or get in the routine of posting, or get in the routine of waking up early or going to bed early, whatever those things are, you need to be mindful of the energy in which you are deciding to do these things. So if you decide to work out and you go in there begrudgingly and angry and annoyed and frustrated, that workout is going to feel just like that. If your thought of going on lives and going on your social media feels like it was the biggest task in the world, guess what? It most certainly is going to be the biggest task in the world. If going to bed early, you have this belief that you're going to be missing out on something, and you don't understand why I need to go to bed early, or you don't understand why I need to get up early, you're going to be annoyed and cranky and frustrated throughout the entire day. It is not what you do that matters alone. It is the energy behind what you do that makes the difference. So you need to be very mindful of your energetic state. You set the tone at which you are received. You set the tone. You set the standard for which you are received. So if you want to show up on social media and you want to be received in a particular light, you need to define what energetic state you want to show up in. You also need to define what is consistency for you. What works for you? Is it 2 days for the week you need to show up? Is it 1 day for the week? Is it 5 times for the month? You get to decide. Do not put yourself in a space to be constantly comparing yourself to what other people in this space is doing, what other people on social media is doing, and then place this heavy pressure on yourself to do it the same, because what works for them may not be working for you. And a lot of the things that stop people from being consistent is that so caught up in what everybody else is doing and not mindful about what would actually work for you as a unique individual, having a unique human experience, creating something unique that is specific to you because it is tied to your purpose and what you were put here to do. So your energetic state from two angles. One, your general energy. As a woman, you need to be mindful of how your energetic flow works throughout the month, throughout the cycle. That's one. Two, you also need to be very mindful of the energy in which you do activities. The energy in which you do anything as it relates to that specific goal that you want. And I would say this again, it's not what you do alone that matters, it's the energy behind what you do that makes a difference. Remember, everything is energy. You get to decide how you're going to show up. Are you going to show up happy, fulfilled, purpose-driven, of service, ready to impact? How are you going to show up? Are you going to come desperate and tired and just demotivated and just bleh? When you show up in either energy, people are going to receive you like that, and you are going to get exactly that back in return. That is exactly what you are going to get right back at you. So that is why grounding yourself, meditation, praying, co-regulation, deep breathing, dropping into your body, those tools that I encourage you to do as often as I can is necessary in this process, right? So when we talk about protect your energy, it's not just about locking off people who not adding any value to your life, or somebody who brings you down, or somebody who just makes you feel very uncomfortable. It's not about that. It is also about your due diligence in this process. Protecting your energy means you implementing things in your daily life that is going to support your energetic state. So now when we talk about consistency, I'm going to move on to the second point as it pertains to consistency. Do you have a consistency problem, or you have a self-trust problem? And maybe you would have answered in your mind as I asked that. But I want to share with you what I believe most people have. Most people have a self-trust issue. You tell yourself, okay, I'm going to get to bed early. Yet you don't. You tell yourself, hey, I'm going to work out today. But you don't. You tell yourself, okay, I'm going to go live. But you don't. You tell yourself, hey, I'm going to apologize to that person. But you don't. What that is essentially is a promise that you have broken. There are so many people in your life, when you tell them, when you make a promise to them, you keep it. Why is it so hard for you to keep your promise to yourself? Why is it so hard to keep your promise to yourself? And let's put this in perspective. If somebody promises you something, they promise that you're going to do something for you. They promise they're going to show up. They promise they're going to act a particular way. So you can think about relationships, family relationships, friendships, romantic relationships. When people say that they're going to do something for you and they don't, it hurts. And if that happens over and over and over again, you have come to a conclusion that you cannot trust them. You do not have any expectation of them to meet any need or any statement or anything that they said they were going to do. The same thing applies when we do that to ourselves. The same thing applies when you do that to yourself. If you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, your subconscious mind is waiting for you to do it. Your subconscious mind is waiting for you to get up. Waiting for you to go to the gym, waiting for you to eat the breakfast properly, waiting for you to drink the water. It's waiting because that's what you said. That is what you said you were going to do. And when it is you don't do it, then guess what? There is a lack of self-trust because your subconscious mind is like, wow, I know she wasn't going to do that. Wow, I know he wasn't going to do that. He said he's going to do it and he didn't do it. So what that creates for you is a lack of personal self-trust. You can't even trust you to get the thing done. And the solution to that is reparenting. And reparenting is essentially giving yourself what it is you need. And when it comes to consistency, when it comes to building that muscle, The goal is not to start from 0 to 100. The goal is not to go from 0 to 100. The goal is to go from 0 to 5, and then 5 to 10, and then 10 to 15, and then 15 to 25, and then 25 to 35, and then 35 to 55, and go up in stages. And that is possible because you are building confidence. When you begin to keep your promises to yourself, aka learn to self-trust, what that does is build your confidence. When it builds your confidence, so you are proud and strong and grounded enough to say that you have become consistent in a particular area, as small as it has been, or as small as it seems to somebody else, it becomes easier to go after your goals with a particular level of momentum. It feels easier to add on something bigger. It feels easier to dream bigger because you have built that self-trust muscle, which the byproduct is consistency. So if you feel as though you have a consistency problem, I am encouraging you to take a deep look to see if it's a consistency problem that you really have, or more than likely it's a self-trust issue. And I find often people who keep promises to other people rarely are able to keep promises to themselves. So you put a lot of effort, a lot of emphasis on keeping promises to everybody else. But very rarely do you promise to yourself and keep those promises. Additionally, if you have a problem keeping promises to yourself, then you probably also have a hard time keeping promises to other people. It goes either way. The bottom line is, for most people, it's not a consistency issue. It's a self-trust issue. Consistency also ties up with commitment. So if you have a problem trusting yourself to follow through with something, it's because that is also the byproduct of that would also be feeling as though you're having commitment issues, feeling as though you're not able to pull through, feeling as though, you would probably fail in that department, so it doesn't even make sense to try. And if there is a self-trust issue, it's because there is fear related in that. Fear is mixed up in that, and it is the root of that. Fear and self-love, work needs to be done as it pertains to your self-trust. Dealing with fear and dealing with your self-love is going to support your self-trust. Your self-trust is then going to support your consistency. So the work is never surface. This is not a top-down approach, but a bottom-up approach as it pertains to your breakthroughs related to consistency. Start doing the work related to your self-love. Start doing the work as it pertains to your self-trust. Start doing the work as it pertains to keeping your promises to yourself. And you are going to see the byproduct is going to be a more consistent version of you. The work is to be done inside out, not outside in. The work is to be done inside out, not outside in. So, of course, that is not to invalidate the benefits of outside things, external factors. That does make a huge impact, which I'm actually going to get into. But if your external factors, if there are no external factors that are hindering you, and I know some people say, but I have all the things that I need, or at least I know the basic things that I have could support me, yet for some reason I'm not doing it. It's probably because there are no external factors that are really stopping you sincerely in a work that needs to be done. Now that will bring me to the third thing to support consistency. So you have started to do the inner work. You have started to work on your self-love. You have started to work on your self-trust. You are being very intentional in terms of your energetic management, but there still seems to be a struggle. The struggle exists because you were not meant to do this alone. The very thing that you struggle with is the very thing that you need support in. You were not meant to do this alone. And if you were meant to do this alone, then we would not have this innate need for connection. We need people. Unfortunately, we've been conditioned and told that we don't need anybody. Do it by yourself. Do it alone. You don't need anybody. That's not true. What we need people that we could have healthy dynamics with. We need people that we feel safe with. We need people that we could co-regulate with. That's what we need. We do need people. And so this is my declaration. This is me letting you know that if you have been doing all the work, you're aware of your energetic state, you've been aware of, you have some work regarding your self-love and your self-trust to do, but you still feel stuck, then now is your time to get support. Whatever area of your life that you're struggling with, if it's relationship, you need to get support. If you have to get a couples therapist, you do so. If it's your personal, if it's something with work, you need to get safety. You need to find support. If there's a manager, a co-worker, somebody who could support you in that field, you get support. If it's finances, reach out to an agent, reach out to somebody in the financial sector, somebody who could help you. If it's your own personal development and feeling stuck as it pertains to your goals, get a coach. Do what you need to do in order to get the support that you need. If it's gym, health and wellness, invest. And it doesn't just have to mean invest with a particular person. If you do not have the finances right now to support that type of investment, then use podcasts, use the zillion of free resources that is available, YouTube, TV shows, whatever it is you could consume that enters through any of your gateways, your ears and your eyes. Use that until better could be done so that you could start developing that safety, that confidence, that accountability that you need. So full transparency here, nobody could keep you accountable. So if I've supported 100 plus clients, I am not the person to keep them responsible. Their decision to come into any energetic container with me has been as a result of deciding that enough is enough. They have come to a place where the desire to change has outweighed their desire to remain the same, and they themselves are ready to be accountable to themselves. But it starts from an act of self-trusting, from keeping promises to themselves. And what I do is simply just harness that. What I do is simply guide that. What I do is simply remind them, should ever anybody come off the course, to be like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. That is my role and function, but nobody could force you to be accountable. The decision always starts with you. So, for a recap, when it pertains to consistency, do you actually have a consistency problem or you have a self-trust problem? And I will go out on a limb here and say that it's a self-trust problem. And I want you to know, if you feel any shame, any guilt, any OMG, it's okay. You're not alone. And for different areas of our lives, we will find that we are thriving in one area and perhaps struggling in the other as it pertains to consistency. Most of the time, the reason for that is because in that specific area of your life, there is fear. Fear for whatever reason that you would have to give yourself permission to sit with, to think about, to understand. And because there is fear, and because there would have been some experience, because, there's some belief about why you can't do it, or why you shouldn't do it, or why you shouldn't have what it is you want, that is where the decluttering work comes into play. When you're able to identify that, when you're able to sit with that, when you're able to accept that that is part of who you are, that is where the self-love comes into play, which allows you to say, okay, I'm going to try. Even if it's just for 10 minutes, I'm going to try. And you're going to give yourself permission to try and maintain the number that you decided was your number. Not what anybody else is doing, but what is realistic and what works for you and your energetic flow. And then you're going to commit to that. And you're just going to do it little by little by little. Remember, what it is you're looking for is not found in the goal that you're trying to achieve in the next 6 months or the next year or the next 2 years. What you are actually looking for is going to be found in your daily life. But so many people are caught up with what happened in the past, caught up in what's happening in the future, and forget to be present in the moment. It is a sacred dance. It is a sacred dance between where you are and where it is you'd like to go. And it's a paradox. And that's what makes this life so beautiful. That's what makes this world so beautiful. It also makes it very hard and painful and tiring and just like OMG sometimes. Consistency is an act of learning to self-trust. Use what works for you. Do not try to compare what somebody else is doing and decide to model that without being aware of what your energetic state is, what your energetic flow is, what is realistic for you to work with, and without having the support that you need, especially if you feel as though you've been stuck for quite some time. So here's my homework to you. I don't think I've ever left homework on a podcast episode before. So here's my homework to you. I want you to look at a particular area in your life that you feel as though you're having a consistency problem with. I want you to then acknowledge if it's really a consistency problem or if it's a self-trust problem. If you decided, hey, I clearly feel as though I noticed that I've been making these promises and I've been breaking them, I want you then to sit down and ask yourself, what would be realistic for me to do? What would be something that I could manage at the bare minimum? So you're going to give yourself a bare minimum that you're going to do. And the goal is simply to just keep that promise to yourself. If it's working out, you haven't worked out in a long time, the bare minimum, and you sit with it, and the bare minimum is 3 days for the week, and the bare minimum is 10 minutes for the workout. All you have to do for this upcoming week is keep the promise to yourself, which is 3 days, 10 minutes maximum. 3 days, 10 minutes. And after you do that, you build a momentum. You do that week after week after week. If you are able to get accountability, somebody to come on board with you to do the damn thing, you let them come on board and do the damn thing with you. If you cannot find somebody, and there's a difference, guys, between not being able to find somebody and simply not accepting the support. They are two very, very, very different things. And most times it's because people don't want to accept the support. And if your answer immediately was like, I have no support, I also want you to reassess that. I also want you to reevaluate that. Is that true? Is it that you actually don't have the support, or you are refusing the support that you are given? I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm just giving you something to think about, right? So I want you to do that as your homework. Whatever the task is, I want you to sit with it. I want you to define what works for you, what is realistic for you. I want you to create something that is the bare minimum. So I'm not asking you to do anything for 5 hours. I'm not asking you to do anything for 10 hours. I'm not asking you to do anything strenuous. I want you to keep it as simple and as bare minimum. So if the week becomes hard and you decided that your bare minimum is 3 days for the week, then that is all you need to give to yourself. And I want you to see it as a promise. And I want you to just do it. And what I like for you to do is after you do that and you notice, hey, I actually made it through this week. I did the bare minimum of the thing that I said that I was supposed to do, because I deserve keeping those promises to myself. I am worth keeping those promises to myself. I want you to then send me a message, send me an Instagram post, DM me, send an email right under this podcast, whatever feels good to you that you implemented. That's all we need. That's all we need. Reparenting is to give yourself what you need, and it does not have to be this big, grand task. Consistency is whatever you define it to be. Whatever you define it to be, that becomes your promise to yourself. If it becomes your promise to yourself, your only job is to keep that promise to yourself. So that brings us to the end of another episode, and this is how to become consistent. Whatever you gain from this, whatever knowledge you gain from this, implement. Kindly implement. Implementation is where the transformation takes place. So if this resonated with you, of course, do subscribe, do place a review, do share, do tag me on your social media. I always love hearing from you. So I will talk to you very, very soon. Goodbye. Mwah.